Welcome to After School with Mr. Van Huss. Today, I'm getting to talk to one of my favorite people that I ever worked with in the music business. He's a gentleman by the name of Alan Stoker, and he works for the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum. Now, Alan is not only somebody that I was proud to call friend back in my music business career, but he is one of the coolest historians that I've ever met in my life. And to be honest, he's kind of one of my heroes because he gets to work around things that are amazing to me and things that I care deeply about, just as I know that he cares deeply about too. This guy is one of the nicest guys you could ever meet. And he also has an incredibly cool connection to early rock and roll and country music. And I'm going to let him share that with you right here in a second. But it's my great pleasure to introduce you to Mr. Alan Stoker.
So welcome to After School with Mr. Van Huss. My guest today, Mr. Alan Stoker. Alan, it is so good to see you. And starting out, I'm just going to let you introduce yourself and just tell everybody what it is that you do.
Thank you, Drew. It's good to be with you. I work for the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum. I work in the archive and digital collections, library collections. I'm the curator of recorded sound collections. So that means that I take care of the 300,000 recordings. I do preservation work on some rare, obsolete recordings. I do acquisitions. I do cataloging also. So I do quite a bit, provide audio for exhibits in the museum, audio for record projects that we work on. So I've been doing this since 1980. Long time.
Cool.
Yeah.
I have a unit that I teach in U.S. history, kind of about the early 1950s, and I talk about your dad a few times to my students.
Well, yes, my dad was Gordon Stoker of the Jordanaires. He came to Nashville as a teenager, started playing on the Opry and on WSM radio with a gospel quartet, and eventually found his way playing piano for the Jordanaires, and ended up then, through an odd set of circumstances, ended up singing, and was singing with them from 1951 until his death in 2013.
That's amazing. I think one of my favorite moments from when I was still working for CMA, I think I had just started there full time when they were putting the Jordanaires in the Country Music Hall of Fame. And I remember you brought your dad by the office one day. And I was standing with some other people kind of in the back of our office. And I remember he walked back there and he stuck out his hand and he said, you kids won't remember who I am, but go home and ask your parents and they'll be able to tell you.
That sounds like something you would say.
And I remember I laughed because my parents, they raised me on Elvis music and Johnny Cash and a lot of that stuff that they were involved in. And I remember I was like, oh, sir, I know exactly who you are, and I started listing out things like, a total geek. And I remember that always stuck with me as just being such a cool moment. And I was so honored to get to talk to him, and it was very neat.
Great.
So what influenced you to be a historian? Like what kind of got you into that?
Well, I've always been interested in history, but especially musical history, mostly because of my dad. Once I realized kind of who he was, that, he didn't have a job like my other friends in school had. He had a completely different thing to do. And it wasn't really a job. It was a passion for him also. So I think I kind of picked up on that from him, his passion for it. And, it took me a little while to kind of get into it. A lot of my friends didn't appreciate or kind of made fun of me because of my dad's connection both to country music and to Elvis. But it's just kind of something that I fell into. I remember specifically a time in the early 1970s when I heard Tammy Wynette sing live. And that brought goosebumps on my arms. And I said, I don't care if my friends don't like this. I do like this. This means something to me. So I've just kind of fell into it that way. And also those old recordings, my dad had those old acetate home recordings at home. And I kind of got interested in those. I would ask him what they were. And that's just kind of happened that way, very organically.
Now, I don't think I've ever asked you this before, even though we've known each other for a while. Did you ever meet Elvis?
I did meet Elvis one time, but I was 5 years old, so I barely remember it. Dad was going to Miami on a train with Elvis and the Jordanaires to do the Timex special after he got out of the Army with Frank Sinatra. and we went down to Nashville's Union Station. That was still a train station then. And Elvis had a private car, a private train, and we went on the private car. I definitely remember going on the train, getting on the train. That's the first train I'd ever been in. And I do remember somebody on the train who was kind of everybody was making a big deal about, So I did meet him once, but I was much more impressed with the train than I was with Elvis Presley at 5 years old.
Now, what was high school and your further education like? You grew up in Nashville, right?
Yeah, I went to Hillsborough High School out in Green Hills. Then I went to George Peabody College as a music major, but I only did that for a couple of years. I'd already started working at the Country Music Hall of Fame then, and they kind of had an opening, and I thought, well, I'd like to just see how this progresses, and so that's really how it went. I only went to college 2 years.
Okay. Did you have a favorite teacher or anything along the way who kind of pushed you into pursuing your dreams or anything like that?
Well, I did have a favorite teacher. I don't know that he pushed me to do anything. It was a guy named Joe Giles. I don't know if you know Joe. He was a choir teacher at Hillsborough the last year I was there, okay. And I'm still very good friends with him. So yeah, he encouraged me to kind of follow my dreams. Yes, he did do that.
All right. So having the ear of some high school students here in my class, what is one life lesson that you think you have learned that you would pass on to like the next generation?
Wow. Well, I would say just kind of to be open to everything that's happening around you. Sometimes God speaks to you in a very small voice, not a loud voice. And so you have to listen and pay attention and really think about what you're being presented with, both the pros and the cons, the good and the bad, and just kind of follow your dreams and just not be scared, really. Also, just follow your dreams.
That's excellent advice. I know when I was young and still had just started working for CMA, to be honest, you were one of my favorite people to work with because we had numerous chances to kind of interact with each other. And it always impressed me just how nice and accommodating you were. And I was a young kid. I didn't know anything at the time. I was just trying to get by, do my best with whatever I could. And you were always so open to talk, and you taught me a few things along the way, and I always just greatly appreciated that. And it's something that I still remember to this day.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. That's the way I was raised. Mom and Dad raised me that way. My brother and my sister also.
So out of all the great stuff that you've been able to work with at the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum, is there anything that stands out that like really got to you that just made an impact when you were working with it or restoring it or anything like that?
Well, there's a couple of things. Jack White bought Elvis Presley's first recording that he recorded in 1954, and I was able to transfer that for him. So that was a good thing. That's Elvis's first recording. I mean, if you go to YouTube and look up Jack White and Alan Stoker, you'll see me transferring that disc for him right here in the audio lab that I'm speaking to you now from. There was also, I've done a lot of Hank Williams demo recordings, and to be holding a small little disc that has the name of the song title and Hank's name, and it's in his handwriting. I'm holding this little bitty disc, and I'm thinking, how many people have held this? That was pretty cool. And I've done a lot of Hank Williams radio programs also, a little over 200.
Wow. Well, Alan, you are still one of my heroes, I think, as a historian. And I greatly appreciate the chance to get to talk to you and everything like that. And thank you so much for taking a little bit of time out of your day to talk to my students. I know if I ever get any of them down to the Hall of Fame or anything here for a field trip or something, I'll definitely look you up again.
Let me know.
I'm going to start teaching a class, not this next year, but the following year, called The Rock and Soul of America, that was developed by Teach Rock, that is Stevie Van Zant's group and stuff.
Okay.
And I'm so excited because I'm going to be teaching a lot about how like early rock and roll and kind of how it, influenced American history and how it went along with it. So it's a class that I'm greatly looking forward to teach. So
I bet that'll be a well-attended class.
I hope so. It'll be a lot of fun. I know that, at least for me, if not for them.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me, sir. And I hope you have a good day. It was great seeing you.
Thank you, Drew. I'm glad to do it.
All right. Thank you. Have a good one.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.